With the introduction of aliens powerful as Sukuna, the world of Jujutsu has begun to evolve. And of course, potential man Megumi Fushiguro at the age of 84 is going to lead the way. No, seriously, Gege hands down couldn't have left his story the way it was. He needs a redemption arc, and what better way is there than to pass his knowledge down to the remaining members of his family?
Well, that's true in a way.
Tsurugi channels his uncle Megumi and outright says, nope, beasts and monsters that have taken human life must be exterminated. The dialogue between the two plays homage to Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 6, where back at the detention center, Megumi tells Yuji that not everyone is worth saving, as the person you might save could realistically end up killing someone in the future. Deep down though, we knew that this was self-projection, as Megumi's ideology stemmed from lack of self-worth, believing even he didn't have value or the right to be saved. However, we know that Yuji saw the best in everyone, even Sukuna. At the very end, he prayed for the King of Curses to reincarnate as a good person, telling him that even if no one accepts it, Yuji will be willing to live on with him. So it's not a surprise that in chapter 268, Yuji finally got through to Megumi, convincing him to fight for his own existence. Megumi finally was able to move forward and had pledged to live his life for others, which is why his story needs to continue into this series of JJK Modulo, where he can share Yuji's kind-hearted teachings to the younger generation. Becoming a sensei would complete the promise he had made and allow him to live up to Gojo's legacy, not as the strongest, but as the best teacher anyone could have. This is definitely needed, especially now that the aliens have entered the chat. Coexistence would seem impossible if one side has greater power, and so he has to level the playing field. If one side has greater power and different ideologies, the playing fields need to be equalized. Without morality, enforcing a way of life onto the weaker side is pretty much like the law of nature. Sukuna's insane strength made him see others as insects, hence their existence, thoughts, and ideologies meant nothing in
not care.
But Yuji saw through his BS and determined that the path he took to become this monster was just down to bad luck. But we are all here for a new beginning, and so after slicing up the tiger, Tsurugi finds its little cub and passes it on to Osada, giving him a new opportunity to do things right this time around. Once again, thematically linking back to Sukuna, Torinosuke grew up with no one to nurture him, leading it to become a monster. This cub represents Yuji, who, because of his grandpa, ends up the way he was, a kind-hearted soul. Similarly, this was also a representation of the two paths, coexistence or conflict. Without trying to nurture and build a relationship, coexistence is a far road to reach. Maru, witnessing the death of Torinosuke, feels as though it represents them and his Sumerian people. So he finally reveals the truth to Tsurugi about his mission to see if coexistence is possible. He also explains why he couldn't save the boy much earlier. His powers are tied to his twin brother, who would know instantly if he uses it. This revelation actually hits deep. In the Jujutsu Kaisen world, twins have always symbolized contradiction. Maki and Mai's heavenly restriction, the taboo of shared potential, the tragedy of being two halves of one whole. Sukuna and his brother were in the exact same boat, until, the latter was eaten and absorbed in the womb. Maru really wants to get along with his twin, yet Cross ain't that interested. In fact, in chapter 2, when he mentions morality, it seems as though Cross was coming from a superior mindset, arrogance and not understanding. A person like that would see that the ends justify the means. Cross' mission is the opposite of Maru's, to apprehend conflict if it's required. If he isn't convinced by Maru's evidence, an invasion will break out. And Cross killing Maru will only benefit him, as the heavenly restriction and limits will break apart, just like when Mai died. Regardless, unless of an emergency, Maru wasn't allowed to use his powers, and so hesitated because he didn't want to make his brother think he was in danger and forced to use his technique. That's why he held back, not out of indifference to human life, but out of fear of worsening the impression of Earthlings in his brother's eyes. My boy really just wants the path of coexistence. And considering he wasn't really supposed to indulge this information, but did so just because he wants Tsurugi to be his nakama, says a lot. Their trust is growing. And if you guys want us to keep growing, then make sure to check out animedrip.shop where you can support us by copying a merch with a 20% off discount using the code NAKAMA. What are you guys waiting for? Go get yourself some merch.